All right, good afternoon. We're going to get started. Hi, I'm Dave Iles with Mellanox Technologies, and I'm going to talk about how we can go SONiC together. So, first off, why SONiC? What's great about SONiC? So, first, I don't know if you guys know what SONiC is, but it was created by Microsoft for Microsoft to be used in Bing and Azure, and it's migrated a little bit in that now it's fully open source. It's a community project, and it is completely royalty free. So for a lot of people, that's the driving force of why SONiC. It's one of the only open source network operating systems that's available and focused for the data center. The other thing is it's a very modern infrastructure, meaning it's Linux based, and that means almost nothing nowadays. Everybody says their operating system is Linux based. But SONiC is a true microservices-based operating system, meaning it is built with containers. Everything runs in its own separate little container, and it has at its base a very scalable database. It's also a disaggregated model, which means that it decouples the hardware from the software, which means that the software is able to kind of innovate on its own rate and pace, separately from the hardware also can innovate at its own rate and pace. With the idea is that the two innovating separately will be faster than something that was tightly coupled together. And then lastly, because it's decoupled, it means that if you pick this software, you can pick any hardware. And if you have a choice of hardware, well, then you have competition. And anytime you have competition, it means that you're going to get better prices and a better return on your investment with SONiC. So that's why SONiC. Let's talk about why SONiC now. So something interesting has happened. We've kind of reached a maturity level with SONiC that is mature enough for many types of deployments. We now went from being something built by Microsoft for Microsoft to being now a large ecosystem of people that are developing and contributing for this. The other thing is we've kind of hit this critical mass this year in terms of features. And we'll talk a little bit more about features in a second, but before it was a very small use case that you could use SONiC for, and it's expanding quite a bit to be more of a general use case. And so we're seeing lots of production deployments in large scale. Tens of thousands of switches are now running with SONiC. But probably the most important reason why now is there's now support available for SONiC. So if you think about it, a lot of people want to use open source technologies, but not everybody wants to, if you're a CIO, bet your company's future on something that you can't get a phone call on, that isn't supported. And if you're a network admin guy, network operations guy, you may not want to bet your personal career on an open source unsupported platform. So one of the important things that's happening now is that there's vendors that are offering support for SONiC on their platforms. And Mellanox is taking that a step further that says beyond platform support, we are going to be offering, or we've announced we are offering, full A to P support for SONiC. What do we mean by A to P? We mean we're offering support whether it's at the ASIC level, or the platform level, which you can get from a lot of people, or the protocol level. So whether you have a problem with a link or you have a problem with BGP not working right, we will stand behind the product, we'll take the phone call, we will support key customers that want to partner with us as they go SONiC together. So that's why SONiC now. Let's talk about why SONiC with Mellanox. So the idea here is that if the software's fixed, if you said, hey, listen, we're gonna settle on SONiC as the right approach, well, then that gives you the freedom to kind of pick and choose the best hardware. And this is where Mellanox, we like that approach, because anytime we can compete on hardware and you could say, let's do an apples to apples comparison, we usually come away looking pretty good. So, and when we say we make better hardware, you start thinking about what is it you want to do. You want better telemetry features. You want Rocky that works. You want VXLAN that works with routing. And you want fully shared buffers. Now, all of these things are things that you might be able to get on a merchant silicon-based approach, but usually that means you can get those features on a lower-end merchant silicon-based approach. If you want high speed and you want routing and VXLAN at the same time, or if you want advanced telemetry on a high-end switch, you're probably talking Mellanox. Even if you want to do programmability, if you want to do programmability with SONiC, we have demonstrated some amazing programmability features with Microsoft at previous OCP events. So the other thing, if you look on the right-hand side of the screen, this full A to P support. I talked about someone that'll take the phone call that offers gold level support services. We're probably the only folks doing that, but beyond that, there's a need for professional services. A lot of times you need someone that can set things up for you. We also are taking it further and coming up with proven use cases and starter kits. So the idea is that we're going to give you the Hello World script. Meaning a lot of times if you've ever taken a programming class, okay, if you know how to really program well, you can start from scratch. But a lot of times you don't need to understand a lot of programming if someone gives you a sample program that says Hello World. You can change the script to something else. And so we'll give you the Hello World script for SONiC on our switches. So meaning you can set up and get a data center up and running, you just change the IP addresses in the templates. And then lastly, we're also offering training. So a lot of you folks, you've got people that are trained, they're Cisco trained, they're Juniper trained. They know what networking is, but they don't know how to do it with SONiC. And so Mellanox Academy is now offering courses with SONiC kind of certification training. And lastly, you'll find that SONiC works better on Mellanox switches just out of the box. Meaning if you want like a split port to work, if you want in-service software upgrades to work, they just tend to work better with Mellanox because we've got such a breadth of experience. And that's partly because we're a huge contributor to SONiC. We are, there's Microsoft at number 1, Mellanox is number 2, and far and away, way down the list is everyone else. So we're a massive contributor to SONiC. We started SI. We did a big announcement back in 2015. So SI is the abstraction interface, how SONiC talks to hardware. We're a community pillar. And when I say community pillar, I mean if you look at the contribution that Mellanox does to SONiC, and you say, well, we've got this microservices approach. Well, if you start looking at, well, what has Mellanox done here? Everything here in blue is stuff that we contributed to SONiC. So we're not in this, we're not dipping our toe into open source. We try to do everything open source that we can. And we aren't just playing at the edge of SONiC, we are leading a lot of the working groups in SONiC. So we're not just a small player here, we're a major community contributor to SONiC. So we talked about why SONiC, why now, why with Mellanox, but let's talk about who should go SONiC and who shouldn't. So first off, I'd say, if you're a small shop, if you look for turnkey IT solutions that someone just sets something up for you, SONiC may not be for you. In fact, I'd say SONiC probably isn't for you. If you're fairly small and non-technical, again, you're going to want to be pretty technical to use SONiC. You're going to want to have some skin in the game, meaning you're going to have some people set aside that can really know how to make it work. And if you're a vendor X fanboy, if you've got some brand tattooed on your shoulder, you're probably not a good candidate for it. If, however, you're serious about scale and you're serious about kind of automation, serious about open source, well, then SONiC's probably for you. And the very typical use cases today is people that they've run away from layer 2, they've gotten it out of their network, and they want layer 3 everywhere. So if you're one of these guys that are putting routing on your host, right, you have FRR running on your server, well, then SONiC's a great vehicle to say, well, if I'm running FRR on my server, why don't I run it on all the switches in my network, as opposed to running FRR on your server and some other routing stack up in different tiers of your network. So SONiC's a good fit for that. So if you're single attached servers, you've got scale. Another way of looking at it is, how many racks of equipment do you have? And a good rule of thumb is, if you have 100 racks of servers, that's a good kind of tipping point to say, maybe I ought to think about it. If you have 10 racks of servers, it's probably, they're better fits for you. So this fits in with this idea of why is SONiC perfect for these guys that have a few features. And if you look at this trend in the larger data centers, there's this trend from very complicated, tons and tons of protocols running in your data center, and you might think that this is the advanced data center set over here. In reality, the more advanced the data center is, the larger the data center is, the more they try to reduce the number of protocols in their data center. In fact, some of the largest, brightest guys out there, they're running 2 or 3 protocols in their data center. And so if you're in that mindset, then SONiC might be a great fit for you. You know, if you've said, hey, listen, let's get spanning tree out of my network, then that's a good fit for you. Now, the one exception to this kind of rule of simplification is that people want more visibility. Those same guys that want fewer features, the same guys that only want to have BGP running in their data center, those are the same guys that say, but I really want to know more about what's going on inside the data center. I want more telemetry. So if you start thinking, well, so why do I need telemetry? Well, any of you guys are network guys, and even though some of you aren't, you've experienced this thing that says whenever something goes wrong in the data center, the network gets blamed. And so the network guys have come up with this term of mean time to innocence, which says, as soon as I get blamed, how quickly can I prove it's not me? And the only way to do that is with good telemetry. So good telemetry gets you to innocence quicker. It also gets you to, when there is a problem, helping you fix the problem. And if you're a CIO, good metrics and good telemetry let you know, am I overpaying for my network? Is the network a bottleneck? It allows you to get more out of your network. So good telemetry is there. And so one of the things that the Mellanox hardware has with SONiC is a feature called What Just Happened. And so What Just Happened is a new kind of telemetry technology that flips the world of network monitoring on its head. So the way network monitoring works today, pretty much everywhere, is something like this. You have a network that runs, and then you collect innocent data, right? Not faulty data, just innocent data. And that can be through a pull method, like SNMP, or it can be streaming telemetry. But either way, what you're doing is you're collecting lots of counters and stats. You may be using SFlow that works like the security at the airport, where you randomly sample packets. But what happens usually is when something goes wrong, you, the network guy, have to give up your weekend. You've got to go through these logs. You have to kind of extrapolate or guess what's the root cause of the problem out there. And we've come up with this feature called What Just Happened with a singular goal. We want to give you your weekend back. So what we want to do is have the network give you the root cause. Have the network hand you the smoking gun of what went wrong. Now keep collecting that innocent data. It's useful for lots of things. But when something goes wrong, you want something that tells you exactly what happened. So let me show you how this works. Every network out there drops some packets. Happens to the best of us. In fact, sometimes it's for good reasons or bad reasons. So sometimes you put in ACL, it's stopping a security problem. You still want to know about that. The problem is that almost every switch on the planet, when it drops that packet, the most it will do is send a log. That packet itself, because it had to be dropped, it gets sent to bit heaven, right? And nobody ever knows what happened to it. And most of those switches will do, they may increment a counter and it'll say, oh, you've now dropped 540 packets because of bad VLAN. Great. Now I know I've dropped packets because of bad VLAN, but I don't know, is that because the switch has the wrong VLAN configured? Is it because the server has the wrong VLAN configured? Is it because the orchestration tool is pushing the wrong things out? You don't know anything except this counter keeps going up. And it's very hard to reproduce sometimes because it might be intermittent. Maybe it happens on Thursdays. Sometimes it happens on Fridays. With the Mellanox switch, when we drop a packet, we hold on to the important information. And we tack on some other diagnostic information so that when you encounter that problem on the weekend, it'll tell you who's being impacted by these drop packets, kind of what's causing the problem, where is the problem in your network, because we'll identify exactly all of that. We'll put when it happened, because we'll have a timestamp. But most importantly, we'll have a root cause, a why. And with the idea is that we're going to help you save time and save you money. And so this is a feature it's a hardware feature, and it's available on Cumulus. It's available on Onyx from Mellanox. But we also make it available with SONiC. So there's just an example of how we expose those accelerated hardware innovations, even though you're using open source software. So why doesn't everyone do that? So if you look at what Gartner says about open networking, they would say that a lot of the legacy network vendors, they lead with the traditional offerings so they can maintain account control and more profit. The bottom line is that everybody talks about open source stuff. Everybody talks about open telemetry, open config, open strategies, and they get the meeting, They close the door, they sit down, and the first thing they do is sell a proprietary solution. Proprietary optics, proprietary telemetry solutions, orchestration tools, and we're a bit different. At Mellanox, we make hardware. We make the ASICs, we make the platforms, and that gives us the freedom to embrace open source technologies. We're not afraid of it because it helps us. It helps you. It makes a better solution. So that's kind of why we're different than the other vendors. So let me stop and say, so what's stopping you from using SONiC? What's the things that's maybe blocking you? Well, some of you guys may be thinking, hey, it's not mature enough. And I think that, you know, if you start looking at the number of thousands of switches that are now deployed with SONiC, you'd probably change your mind on that. You might think, well, I need 10 developers to set aside for that. And in this, there's a kernel of truth. We're looking for customers that have some skin in the game. The best customer for us that is doing SONiC is someone that has someone that they can set aside that can be an expert on running SONiC. Again, it's not for someone that just, they don't want to have to configure anything or understand how the network works. You want somebody that wants to embrace network. They want to create a SONiC build environment, that they're comfortable going out on GitHub, right? So you don't need 10 developers, but you do need some skin in the game. And then a lot of people have been blocked because they ask, so who will support me when there's a problem at 2 a.m.? Who's going to take the phone call? Who's going to fix the bugs? And I would say that Mellanox is signing up for that. There's also a question of usability. How do I use this? So there's a lot of tools that are built by Microsoft and others that use this template-based approach. But there's other companies like xCloud, where they try to make it super easy for them to come in and abstract a lot of the box-by-box configuration. So there's a few ways of addressing the usability problem. Training. Many of you may have questions about training. So hopefully you caught that we are offering SONiC training at Mellanox. So we have a world-class training team called Mellanox Academy, and so we're offering that. And then if you need a managed POC or management tools, we're also there for you. So hopefully a lot of the things that might stop you from using SONiC are being addressed today, right now, by Mellanox. And so the argument here is that SONiC is going to be a lot easier to use with Mellanox. We're a one-stop shop when it comes to support, whether we're talking about the ASIC, the platform, or the protocol. Arguably, we have the best-in-class platforms, but we also try to make it very easy to consume with the starter kits and with training. So this is my call to action portion of my presentation. This is where, listen, we'd love for you to try it out, download it, but better is you can come talk to us today. We're having a party tonight at this event. So if you're interested in SONiC, if you think that you have that 100 racks of equipment kind of minimum to get there, we'd like to talk to you. And so I'm putting the invitation out there. We have at our booth, we've got like little invites that you can come by and get, but we've got a party where we've got snack food and drinks, and it's like just across the street from the event. So you guys are welcome to come talk to us, but the idea is that we want to find out which of you want to start going SONiC with us. So if you have that interest, if you think that you've kind of you've got to be this high to ride the SONiC roller coaster, if you're that size, I think we're happy to kind of have that conversation with you. Now with that, do you guys have any questions? Yes, sir.
Is it compatible with any SDN controller solution on the market? Is it completely transparent?
So the question is SONiC compatible with any current SDN platforms on the planet? And so I would say that that's an emerging area. It's adding things like EVPN, so you may not need a controller for things. There's also guys like Canonical that are looking at using their provisioning stack that goes very, very high all the way down into networking. So they're trying to bring that to bear. So I think we're on the cusp of a lot of SDN or controller or orchestration tools that'll be available. As I mentioned, xCloud is out there where they have supported intent-based networking for SONiC. There's also Apstra, which also supports SONiC for in their solution as well. Excellent question. Another question.
I would add to that your statement that it's suitable to smaller shops and non-technical people, companies like Apple, like others. We are actually solving this problem by providing a layer of abstraction and making sure that your technical stuff is working, the configuration is right, that your operational state is in sync with intended state.
So for those of you in the back that didn't hear, they elaborated on how Apstra and others can make SONiC suitable for smaller shops. So if you don't have the technical expertise and you want to abstract the complexity, and again, not do box by box configuration, Apstra, xCloud, I think there's some other folks that try to solve that problem. Any other questions about SONiC on Mellanox hardware? Oh, there's a question over there.
Can you mention who uses SONiC already in Europe, let's say? Is there somebody else than Microsoft?
So I think that there are some large customers. You can see some of the contributors. So I don't think we've got public wins that we can announce, but you can see the contributors of guys like Criteo is a good example of people that have contributed to the community. There's other big customers, especially out of China. You see in the U.S., we see in China. I'm not sure who the big customers in Europe are, but I know that you can see from GitHub on who's contributing. The people that are contributing usually are people that are early on and giving back to that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you guys for your time. And again, if you're interested in chatting more over drinks, come by the booth and get your invite.
6:30.
Oh, the party's at 6:30. Thanks.